Okay guys, I took a 5-inch eye bolt, 1/4-inch eye bolt, 5-inch one, and I cut off the eye, okay? All I did was cut off the eye. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over to my anvil and I'm gonna flatten out the end so I can drill a hole through it. This is gonna be my rod for my planer board. I'm gonna take the end that doesn't have the threads on it and I'm gonna just flatten that end out. Now you can see it's flat. Now all I did was, I just did that so that I can drill a hole through that now. And that's gonna be my leg for my planer board. I flattened the end out. Now I'm gonna drill a hole through that. Put it in a vise to hold it. I'm gonna drill a hole through that. I've got a 1/8 inch bit. Now I've got my bolt for my planer board. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it over to the grinder and just smooth off those edges so they don't have a chance to cut my line. Okay, so I've got a piece of composite. You can use a 1/8 inch or a 1/8 inch piece of aluminum. This is just a piece of composite that I have. It was some sign material. I'm gonna clean off the side. I've drilled all right, my planer board is 10 inches long, okay, by 6 inches wide. I've rounded off the corner. I'm gonna drill a little bit bigger hole here. I've got a 1/4 inch hole right here at about 2 3/4 in and 3 inches down from the top. And what we're gonna do is we're going to, that rod will go in here and it's gonna stick out this side for a left planer board. It'll come out this other side for a right planer board. We're gonna have to clean this off with some acetone, and I'm gonna re-drill this hole, make it just a little bit bigger. Right now it's 1/8 of the size of an 1/8. This is a 1/4 inch to fit our little rod we just made. And we're gonna go in and put this thing together. I'll show you how it works. So what I'm doing, guys, on my piece of composite, and like I say, this is about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's not very heavy. And I'm gonna, instead of 1/8 of an inch here, I'm gonna make it 3/16. Just a little bit larger. And you want it in that corner so that, you can hook a swivel on there. I'll show you how we do that. Okay, there's a little bit of a burr. On the edge of my bolt that I'm gonna use on my planer board. I don't want that burr on there, so I'm just gonna take the grinder. And I'm just gonna knock that burr off. Doesn't take much. So now I've knocked it off, I've rounded it off just a little bit, and I've saved my line from snagging on that. There we go. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got some heat shrink that I'm gonna use to cover my threads once I get it on here. So I buy this heat shrink by the roll. This is 1/4 inch heat shrink. You don't have to do this, but anything that can keep you from snagging your line when you're pulling a planer board is a good thing. So I'm gonna put some heat shrink over my threads of my bolt. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do, we've got our planer board here. I'm gonna make a planer board like this one here, but this is for the starboard side or the right side of the boat. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make one for the left side of the boat. First thing you gotta do is I've got a piece of composite. This is just a little 1/8 inch piece of composite. You can get, this is old sign material that you might see on the billboard. You can use an 1/8 of an inch piece of a scrap aluminum. And I'm gonna take my acetone and I'm gonna clean this really good. Get all the grime and dirt off of it. Clean it up as good as I can. You want to do this for both sides, okay? And you don't want to just clean off the top, you want to clean the whole thing. Just use your acetone. And you want to clean this whole thing, get it all good and clean. Try not to get this on your clothes. Acetone evaporates very quickly, so you got to keep putting some more on your rag in order for it to work well. Alcohol would probably do the same if you didn't have acetone. All right, so I have got my planer board and I've got it clean. I've drilled my 1/4 inch hole. In the corner down here, I've drilled a 3/16 inch hole. And before, I'm not gonna put my hardware on here yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this piece of styrofoam. I'm gonna put this on here and I'm gonna show you how I do this. This one here, guys, I've been using this one. I've had this one for 2 or 3 years and it's still just as good as it was when I first got it. Okay. Got my planer board laid out here. Now, like I said, this one here is one that is being used for this side of the boat. I'm gonna want one for this side of the boat. So I'm gonna cut my pieces of styrofoam. I'm gonna cut them 10 inches long, the length of my planer board. And instead of a 45 going this way, I'm gonna have a 45 coming back this way, okay? Now, what do I use for my styrofoam? I have found that this Owens Corning wallboard it's really dense and it's really good for what we're using here. This little piece here is a little bit dirty. Okay, so it may not look like it, but I've cleaned this piece off here. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna cut this. Take my pieces over here. Okay, so this stuff is about 1 inch thick. You can see here. This stuff is 1 inch thick. And so what I'm gonna do is I am going to cut some pieces out of this that are 10 inches long, the length of my planer board, and 2.5 inches, about 2.5 inches wide. So I'm gonna need 2 pieces that are 10 inches long. Lay this over here. I'll probably have to clean that again. And all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna I'll use my planer board as a guide. I need 2 pieces, 10 inches long. There's my planer board, that's how long. And I'm gonna need them 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches wide. That one. Okay. Draw me a line on here. There's one. From that line. use my planer board as a straight edge. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, now let's cut those two pieces out. Now this will probably make a mess. I've got a knife with a serrated edge. Last time I did it, I think I did it with my fillet knife. Main thing is I clean up the mess before my wife gets home. There's one piece. This stuff is really strong, so it makes a really good section for doing what I'm doing here. All right, part of the mess. Let's see here. Let's clean this off real quick. Okay. Now, I've got my two pieces, and they look like they're pretty rough, and it will not matter at all. Clean up the edges a little bit. They're going to be roughly the same size. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ends that are the same. I'm going to lay them, and I'm going to glue these two together. And I have me a little stick. You can use a stick, a nail, or whatever you need to do to mix up your epoxy. This is a 2-part epoxy. It sets up pretty quickly. All I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze it out here in equal parts. Put my lid back on. Take the pressure off. Put the lid back on. I'm going to use that again here in a minute. Alright, I'm going to take my stick, mix it up really good. It'll sort of turn milky white when it's ready. Doesn't take a lot of this stuff. What I'm going to do with it though, I'm going to take and I'm just going to spread it on here and glue these two pieces of styrofoam together. Alright, doesn't take much. Make sure my ends, the round ends, are together. I'm going to mash them together and hold them for a second. This is like 30-second epoxy. Alright, you can put something heavy on them just to let them set up. Let those set together. And then we're going to cut the end off. Okay, I've let this set for about 10 or 15 minutes. And now I've got my two pieces of styrofoam together. I'm going to take this out. And all we have to do now, guys, is you need to cut. You're wanting this thing to float this way out from the boat. So I'm going to cut a 45 on this one right here. So you can literally just cut you a 45 here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to the chop saw, and I'm just going to I'm just going to lay it in the chop saw and cut me a 45, and I'll be right back. So I went out to the chop saw, and I took my piece of styrofoam and I cut my 45 on here. I actually ended up just running it down, the chop saw down beside it and squaring everything up. So I've got a piece of foam here, and as you can see, I've got a planer board, and I'm going to glue this piece of foam on my planer board like this. Now my other one is glued like this. So you can see this is for the right side of the boat. This is for the left side of the boat when you're drift fishing, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to glue this on, And now you could, if you wanted another right side, you could just take and flip this over and put it here. And some people, what they'll do is they'll make styrofoam and they'll put it on one on each side. And so what they'll do is they'll just take their bolt out and flip it around. But I don't want to have to do that. I'm just going to make one for the left side of the boat. So take and put this one over here, and we're going to do the same thing as we just did. I've already cleaned this off with acetone. We're going to take our two-part epoxy. I hadn't got much left in my thing. I'm going to take it, I'm just going to squeeze it all out. And that one will be finished. All right. Take my little stick, stir it up until it gets milky white. Now, I'm not putting this on the planer board itself. I'm going to put this on the back side of my styrofoam. Okay? You want to get it all the way to the end, at least on the ends, okay? Especially the front end, because that's where the drag is going to be in the water. All right? Doesn't have to be completely covered, but you want it covered really good, pretty good. That way you can make sure it sticks. And we'll lay it right on my composite, and I'm going to square up the top. Okay, there it is. Now, I'm going to then, like I did before, place something heavy on it. Make sure it hasn't moved. Make sure it has some pressure. Make sure it doesn't ooze out and get on my table or my counter. There it is. Let that set for a few minutes, okay? And there that sets, and then we'll continue the process. Okay, so I'm gonna take off my weight, and it is stuck to my planer board. Now, you could probably use it just like that, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna take some duct tape. Now, I've got some red duct tape here. Take some duct tape, and I'm going to cover it with duct tape all over it. A lot of people don't realize that duct tape is actually waterproof. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to cover it with duct tape. And I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go down. Now right here on the end where it's pointed, what I'm going to do is I am going to take and I'm going to make sure I curve around the end of my planer board. I want no water to be able to get in and try to separate my planer board and my styrofoam. So I'm going to use that duct tape to help do that. Pull a piece off big enough to where I'm going to go around the back side over here. Okay? Now, I'm going to completely wrap this thing with duct tape so I won't have an issue. Probably be good if I got the scissors out. Okay. right here on the front, I'm gonna do the same thing. Because it's gonna go through the water, this is the front. I want all my joints to be facing backwards, if at all possible, okay? Really get you a good seal on those. Cut right down through there. Lay that one down. Lay that one down over it. Okay. Okay, so I laid it down. You can see I've got some open ends there. I'm going to wrap right over those so the water won't peel them back when you're pulling this through the water. Okay. On this end, I'm going to cut it off a little short so that it won't go around that end, and there again it won't have any way that water can pull at it. It's going to finish it up on the back, on the bottom. All right, so I've got this thing wrapped. Now I need to do this part here. Okay. Won't hurt for it to stick up on top like that. Now then, now you can see I've got it wrapped all the way around. I'm gonna put one more piece to cover that edge right there. Take the back side of my scissors, make your crease. May have to get a There you go. Make that crease. Go around the front of the planer board and make that crease. Okay. On the back side, you're going to cut. You're going to just notch it right here. Okay, and then I'm going to put one more piece on it right there and cover that up. I like to use red or orange duct tape, because if you'll use red or orange, you will they're easier to see in the water. Fluorescent green works well, but I really like the red and the orange personally. Just whatever you want. Okay, now we have our duct tape and our foam safely secured to our planer board. All right, we have it secured to our planer board. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount our bolt that we've cut off, flattened, put a hole in. We're going to mount that to our planer board. In order to do so, we need to put a 1/4 inch bolt on. We need to put a washer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to stick it right through the hole where it goes. Put another washer on. And then we want a 1/4 inch nut with one of these silicone washers that's built in, so it will lock it in place. So as you can see, I've got my little bolt, and this bolt, guys, after I've cut it off and everything, it's about 4 inches long. All right, so it's a 1/4 inch bolt. I've got a lock nut on this side. I've got a washer. I've got a washer on this side. And so what I'm gonna do is I am going to take a crescent wrench, and I'm going to hold this flat part of this bolt so it cannot spin. And then I'm going to take this other one right here. I'm just going to tighten it down. Tighten this one down. Tighten it all the way tight against the other one, and that will lock these two in place. All right, so now I've got my planer board sitting out there. Now I've got to attach my hardware. Now, if you sit this on your boat seat and you step on it, it's going to poke a hole. So you got to be aware of that, all right? And I'll tell you something else that you don't want to do. You don't want to throw this on your boat seat and sit down on it either. I promise you. I've done it accidentally, and luckily I was able to get off of it pretty quickly. But it can ruin you really quickly. So just be careful with these planer boards, laying them around in the boat. If you fall on one, you're landing on a spike, and you can really have a problem if you're not careful, guys. So just be real careful when you're using planer boards in the boat, especially around kids. I'm going to back this one off to where the bolt is not sticking out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that through. I'm going to tighten this lock washer down, or this nut on the other side down against it. And if I can do that, then that'll keep it from causing an issue. Okay. Now that won't come loose, guys. So now I've got it locked down. I've got the nut. Now I don't have it sticking out now. It's just a nut there. So that's a little safer on that end, especially for your seats. But I've got my little 4-inch bolt here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my, I've brought it in, here it is, my heat shrink. Take some of your 1/4-inch heat shrink, and you want to cut off a piece that is about, you want to cover your threads is what you want to do. So take your 1/4-inch heat shrink, cut your little piece off, put that back in this container, open this up, and what I'm doing is the threads on this bolt, I want to cover them up. You want to cover them. I did that on the other one. You probably can't see it, but it's because my heat shrink is clear. But I did the same thing on the other one so that my line can't snag on that. It can't snag on that bolt. Okay, so that's all I'm doing is I'm gonna take my heat shrink, put it on there. And I'm gonna melt it on there. Now, I've got a little rod there that is ready to have my clip mounted to it. Now, these are just little clips that you can buy on Amazon, and I bought a 25 pack, and I took this one off of my other one just for this demonstration. I know tomorrow I'm going to use this thing, and I'm going to use it on I need a left-handed planer board, so I took it off. I'm using this for this demonstration, but I've got to find my whole box of these little clips. I've got 25 of them somewhere, and all I'm doing is I'm clipping it on there so that I've got my clip on there, and my string will be clipped here, and then I've got a really large, it was a swivel like this. I took the back side off of it, and I'm going to place this in my planer board right here in this hole. There it is. Now then I'm going to lock that in. There. I've got that in, my clip in, and I'm gonna bend that over. Now, my planer board is done. What I do with this, guys, is I just open this up, put my fishing line in there, close it, run my bait out into the water as far as I want it, 10, 20, 30 feet, however deep or however far behind the planer board that I want it. And then I clip the line right here into this. I clip it into this, and once I clip it into this, then I send it out as far as I want to go out from the boat. And so we'll demonstrate this thing. We're going to try to demonstrate it tomorrow so that you guys can see how it works. On this type of clip with the little O-ring, you want to make sure your bolt is, the flat part is running parallel with the bottom or the top of your planer board. And this planer board is ready to go. We'll tighten it up one more time, make sure it's good and tight, and it'll be there. Okay, that planer board is good to go. That is one for the left side of your boat. So guys, I hope this video helped y'all. Try these planer boards. You can set a lot more lines out if you're fishing with a planer board than you can with just throwing lines out by themselves, because it lets you separate the lines out. You can have these 50, 100 feet away from the boat, and they'll be out of line with the other ones that you're just dragging straight behind the boat. So try it and see what you think. This is a really good thing to have when you're catfishing or you're striper fishing or you're trolling. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this video. I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good day. Good luck fishing tomorrow.